Hello everyone. Welcome to the second part of the lesson on the judicial organization during the British rule in India. Now in this particular lesson we'll be looking at the structure of the courts. We'll also be looking at what was this Kaide ba Mashakkat. You may have heard about it in films, etc. So it will be something interesting. We look at the difference between Niti and Nyay and how it's important to maintain some sort of consonance between the two. And yes, as promised, since we looked at why wigs were worn by judges at that time, we'll now be looking at how did robes come about to become a part of the judicial dress code. Okay. But before we do that, I'm going to tell you a little story about Justice Romesh Chandra Mittal. Now, he was the first Indian to be appointed as an acting judge in the Calcutta High Court. And why is it interesting? Because there is something, a quality of his that you will gather from this little anecdote that I'm about to narrate to you. And it's quite inspiring in a way. So, Justice Romesh Chandra Mittal was actually put on vacation duty in a particular year, and he was supposed to reach court, but it so happened that it slipped his mind, and by the time he reached court he found that junior judges and the parties that were involved and the councils, they were waiting for him for over 2 hours. So he did whatever he had to, completed work, and then he came back and he started mulling over the fact that he was actually late for an appointment in court. He felt that he was, this forgetfulness would not be very nice for him while dispensing his duties as a judge, and therefore he wrote a letter of resignation on this ground, and it was accepted and he resigned at the age of 50. So, this is the level of integrity that he had. So, just a little interesting story for you there before we begin with the more mundane details, so to speak. Okay. So, the beginnings of changes in the judicial system or reforms, they were made by Warren Hastings, but the important pioneering contributions were made by Cornwallis from 1793. And Cornwallis's name, if you remember, we had also discussed at length in the lesson on civil services, which is the first lesson that we made. So, you can always look at that. Now, what did Cornwallis do? He said that there should be abolition of court fee. In part 1 of the lesson on the judiciary, we did discuss about the fact that some sort of inequalities were creeping in the legal system because of the changes that had been introduced, and one of them was that it was becoming way too expensive for the natives. So this is one thing that he recommended. Then he also observed that arrears of cases was due to arbitrariness and inefficiency in the justice administration. He tried to regulate the legal profession, where he charged only a moderate fee prescribed by the government. And the provision was such that if someone were to violate this particular fee provision, then their license to practice would be taken away. All regulations and judgments that were issued in one financial year were to be printed and were to be compiled in a volume. Now, this is again something that has carried forward till date. Lucky for all of us that we've been able to read the regulations and judgments compiled in black and white. And he also tried to look at Niti and Nyay. Now, this I mean, of course, like in the sense that Niti is about the laws that exist through institutions and through rules and regulations. So they essentially dictate what ought to be there. Nyay is that particular rule or that particular institution in action when you implement what has been written. So that is the difference between Niti and Nyay, but in order for justice to be dispensed in full, both of these need to go hand in hand. You should know for a fact that Cornwallis was in fact criticized to a great extent because it was felt that he was splurging a lot of money into all these reforms that he tried to introduce. But he personally was of the view that as the East India Company was anyway getting huge amount of money from the people of India, mostly in the form of land revenue, it would have been criminal to resort to economizing in the administration of justice. He felt that, you know, this is something that should not be compromised with for the sake of money. Now, as regards civil courts, what happened that in his time he deprived the collector of his magisterial power, and now only he was reduced to a rent collector. In each district there would be a Diwani Adalat or a civil court. There would be a district judge who belonged to the civil services. So he differentiated between the collector and a civil judge. Then the appeal from this would go to the 4 provincial courts of civil appeal and then to the Sadar Diwani Adalat. Below the district court there were certain other courts, as you can see, and what was interesting was that they applied customary law prevailing in any area or among a section of the people since ages. So this is important because you will find that the British were not totally overhauling the system. They were aware of the intricacies involved if they were to get rid of traditional customary laws totally. So in order not to have that kind of disruptive upheaval, this was maintained. For criminal cases, Cornwallis divided the presidency of Bengal into 4 divisions. Then there was a court of circuit in each of them, presided over by civil servants. Appeals lay with the Sadar Nizamat Adalat. So you need to remember Diwani and Nizamat. Below these, there were a large number of Indian magistrates to try petty cases, and the criminal courts applied Muslim criminal law in modified form. This is being mentioned here because earlier there were certain sorts of punishments that were being doled out by traditional courts that were considered to be too harsh, and so these were not maintained by the new system of criminal courts. Then came Bentinck, and he also introduced a slew of reforms. So a regulation was passed that magistrates were to have the power of awarding punishment of 2 years imprisonment with hard labor, and this is Qaid-e ba mashakkat. Ba mashakkat meaning that hard labor, and Qaid of course means imprisonment. Then certain other things such as summary disposal of certain types of cases. Then in 1831, the provincial courts of appeal and circuit were abolished, and their work was assigned to commissions first and then to district judges and district collectors. The position of Indians in the courts was improved to a great extent, with them being appointed to positions like deputy magistrates, subordinate judges and so on. Then in 1832, a separate Sadar Diwani Adalat and Sadar Nizamat Adalat established in Allahabad. Then the jury system was introduced in Bengal for the first time, and here's what I would want you to write in the comments. Please mention the case since when the jury system in general stopped in India. So you just need to mention the name of the case, and a very famous film has also been made on that, so that's a bit of a hint for you. In 1865, high courts were established at Calcutta, Madras and Bombay to replace the Sadar courts of Diwani and Nizamat. European judges were authorized to refer cases to the panchayats, but here's what you need to remember. So it wasn't like, they would refer the case to the panchayat and then the panchayat was in charge of dispensing or disposing of the entire case. The panchayat was only supposed to make an inquiry and then send a report to the European judge. So like I told you, the British were not completely changing what was previously happening in the Indian scenario, because they were aware of the delicate balance they had to maintain, and this was one way of maintaining that balance. Then also the use of Persian as court language was abolished and the use of vernacular was ordered. Now why was this important? This was actually a boon for litigants. We have spoken about this, that the natives did find the new system of laws a bit overwhelming and difficult to understand because of the lack of literacy in those particular languages that were being used. So this option was given to them, which was great. Now, new system of laws to eliminate arbitrariness. This new system was through the process of enactment and codification of the old laws. Personal laws were retained majorly. The Charter Act of 1833 conferred all lawmaking power on the Governor General and Council, and this governor appointed a law commission headed by Macaulay to codify Indian laws, and we were presented with the Indian Penal Code, and also our CPC and CRPC was inspired by the West. And this system then essentially unified India judicially. Okay, lastly, let's talk about the idea of wearing robes by the judges. So, as was the case with wigs, this was more or less the result of the social custom at that time. And by the time of Edward III, it was the correct dress for attending the royal court. To the extent that it is said that if you were a judge at that point in time and you happened to be wearing robes, you would not stand out as much, because a lot of other people were wearing it in any case when they had to attend the royal court. As regards the material, so the material for these robes was originally given to judges as a grant from the crown, and it included materials such as ermine and taffeta or silk. You can find out about these if you're interested. In 1635, there was a definitive guide to court dress in the form of the judges' rules. It did not change much in terms of the dress code, but it did prescribe when that thing was to be worn. And there was a gradual shift to black robes. And as regards the bands, earlier there used to be ruffs associated with Queen Elizabeth I, sort of frills, if you will, and later on it became 2 rectangles of linen tied at the throat. So that's it in this particular lesson, and I hope it's useful for you all. So please keep studying and stay safe. Thank you.